All right, everybody, welcome back to Powered by Primus. This is going to be our second episode on our new podcast series, and I'm going to be introducing the one and only Drew Nolosco from Wizards of the Coast. How's it going today?
Hey, how's it going, Jamie? It
Pretty
is
good, pretty
really
good.
great to be on the show.
I appreciate you being here, and we did have Matt on our previous one. I believe at the time of this recording, we haven't posted that other one yet, but you guys would be getting those in a really nice little pair there. I just, again, I want to give a huge thank you for you guys sitting down and doing this with us.
Oh, happy to.
Awesome. So we're going to get into a bunch of different questions here, a little bit about what you do with Wizards, as well as a lot of the stuff about you personally. The one thing that I really want to do with this new podcast series is really get to know more about the individuals that are attached to the Transformers IP. So we're going to be doing a bunch of really cool stuff in this. And then at the end of it, I'm going to open up the floor. If there is something that you do want to throw back at me, that way we can just kind of go back and forth on a topic you would like to speak about as well.
No, you got it. I am definitely in favor of talking about myself.
Awesome. So one thing that I know that me and Matt spoke about was I talked about the inception of the Transformers TCG. And one of the things that he said was that you were also one of the people that really pushed for it. Where does your love for the Transformers come into play that really helped you want to push this as a new card game?
So it really started when I was 6 years old. That is because I got into Transformers right as G1 came out. I was probably got my first Transformers toy at the tail end of year 1 of G1. And then I really got into it with year 2. I've been a Transformers fan that for pretty much that entire time. This is about me, so this is not any. These things are not indicative of like where the game or the brand is going.
Absolutely.
But I was around for G2. I was still interested. At some point in there, my primary focus switched to GI Joe, and I was a GI Joe fan for a long time, and still collected and played with Transformers. And then right around the Beast Wars period, I had sort of like aged out a little bit, and so the Beast Wars period was something that I rediscovered a little bit later on, and then got back into it again. So I've been a Transformers fan for a long time. I've talked about my love for Grapple in previous discussions, but Transformers had some significant personal connections to me. Like just really briefly, the Grapple story was like I learned how to save money to buy something bigger, and so control impulses for a better reward down. And Grapple was that the product of that first saving my allowance type deal.
Yeah.
So right, like so Transformers have really been with me the entire time. As
Nice.
to how that sort of morphed into, oh, there's a game. It was really the recognition that the Transformers IP was super robust enough to handle being a effective trading card game, right? And there's some things that I look for in terms of properties. One of them is a wide and diverse cast of characters. Second, I look for a conflict engine, and the Autobot Decepticon conflict engine is perhaps one of the most famous conflict engines in geekdom. So, right, like
Yeah.
even casual geeks almost certainly, and we know this from testing, almost certainly know who Optimus Prime is, and are very likely to know who Megatron is. And these are people we're not talking about Transformers fans. This is like talk to a random person who says they like games, geeks, or sci-fi, and the recognition factor is super high. So that Optimus versus Megatron as one example of the larger Autobot versus Decepticon engine breeds the ability to create a conflict engine in a trading card game that is robust and sustainable. And then lastly, and this is not an insignificant part, Wizards of the Coast is part of Hasbro, and I've worked on a lot of licensed games in my past, from Star Trek to Harry Potter to Twilight to like all over the board. And working with your parent company, so it's not a licensed game, it's just going to people in another department and saying, hey, can we do this thing, is of an extreme benefit rather than having to run it through the way licensed games go through approvals. And this is a collaboration with the Transformers team members, and they have been an enormous aid and advocate for us. It's been a very rewarding experience. So a lot of those factors came together and to say, hey, we should give this a try.
Yeah, no, it definitely, and that all makes a whole lot of sense for you guys to be able to work directly with them, kind of like you said now. So, with that in mind, is it something that you guys try to really be on the same page, go a little more parallel with what Hasbro is kind of doing as well, or do you guys have a little more freedom when it comes to your waves or sets on what you guys are kind of allowed to, push the boundaries with?
We have a fair amount of freedom, but like anything, that was part of relationship and trust building with the Hasbro team, right? Like we had never worked with them before, and there was a Transformers game from Wizards like way long ago,
Yeah.
but people come and go in business. So this particular team, we hadn't worked for them, um, and so we spent a lot of time building up a trustful relationship that allowed us then to have maneuvering room and flexibility in what we pitched to do. So, uh, and part of that is describing to the Transformers team what the advantages of a trading card game as a format are. We can show lots of characters, for example, whereas they can only make so many toys, and it's just because of the logistics and realities of the different, like printing on cardboard and paper versus sculpting plastic.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
right. So as part of the larger Transformers brand, we serve a role that is a little bit unique in that we can also pretty rapidly move around in time inside the Transformers IP. For example, Wave One was very G1 focused, and Wave Two took the combiner theme, and we pulled different parts of the combiner toy lines from different places in the Transformers universe, and we were able to put that together and create a pretty what I thought was a pretty seamless experience. Um, and then we went to Siege, right? Like, and we're jumping again. And the nature of a trading card game and the fans of a trading card game and the way they understand and consume content is allows us to do that. So we can kind of be wherever Transformers needs us to be or where we want to go. Um, and that is something that a lot of other properties can't. Like you can do it with comic books, for example, but that's not a game.
Right, right. And then like you guys are even showing off with this, set in particular, there's only, 5 returning characters and everything else is going to be brand new stuff. So you guys are definitely showing off that there is a lot there that you guys get to explore. So
Yes, and that this is a big thing that's important to players and the different types of players, and it's important to us because that's actually worth talking about, like why we choose characters to come back. Um, at every point in a trading card game, every day is a good day to acquire new players. There's no one point where we say, okay, this is the set where this year we'll devote to acquiring new players, and that's particularly true during the beginning of the lifestyle cycle of a trading card game. We want to be embracing new customers and new players and bringing them in. And so there need to be relatable touch points. And this goes back to the thing that I said very early, where characters like Megatron and Optimus Prime um, are recognizable to even the most casual fans, which is why those characters and a few others show up more frequently. Like Optimus, there's been an Optimus in every set.
yeah.
Um, and that's likely going to be true for a while because of his he is so recognizable and so loved that it's a great point to capture the attention of someone and say, oh, look at this cool Optimus Prime. He Galaxy Commander Optimus Prime. You didn't know that Optimus Prime could do that, and that serves to bring characters in. At the same
Yeah.
time, we want to make sure that there's a lot of freshness for players who are already invested in their minds and their time and their energy so that they can see new things.
Yeah, that's the really cool part that me and I know Matt discussed a little bit was that even with the introduction of bringing some of these same characters back over and over, they play very differently. They have very different effects to where you really get to play the Optimus you want, kind of in any of different style decks you want. You're not really kind of pigeoned into only playing just the one Optimus. So
Right. And for some characters like Optimus and Megatron and Starscream, that is very possible. I thought that us being able to do Optimus Gleaming Commander in Wave 2 as a combiner part, just sort of illustrates how wide we can go in terms of differing one character iteration to another.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to designing these sets and these waves you guys work on, what is some of the more difficult challenges that you guys have to get over, as well as what are some of the easier challenges you guys have to deal with?
From a very technical point of game design, not having casting costs or resource costs is an extreme technical burden.
Hmm.
And for example, consider Magic the Gathering, which has uh, a a set of casting costs that work on just total number of resources. Like this is costs 5 mana, and then also gets to play around with type of resources. It's 5 mana, but 2 of them are red, and 3 of them can be any color. And that allows a very, very level of fine control in balance. Like you can have a very powerful card, and you can cost it appropriately. The
Yeah.
transform with the Transformers trading card game doesn't have casting costs. It doesn't have resources that way, and that was an intent. We made a very conscious decision going into the game, our initial system design, because we wanted the game to start with action, and by the nature of resource building, like playing land or any other way of generating resources, there's some build up time necessary. And so the trade off there is we get battle quickly, and the game is simpler to understand. And the downside is we have to be a lot more careful about um, the relative power level of cards. And so the absolute value, g- strong or weak, can't be super wide. And so what one of the things that we've embraced is going really broad in terms of power, things that do different things and encourage different strategies, and it's something that we are pretty aggressive about because we can't say, okay, well, in the last set we had a 3/3 goblin magic set, and he costs 4 mana. Maybe the set will have a 2/2 goblin, and it will cost 2 mana.
Yeah.
Um, that is an extreme challenge and something that Ken Nagel and Scott Van Essen, as the two, the lead and senior game designer, spend a lot of time working on and thinking on. And when all of us do sort of card creation, there's a lot of burden on those guys to make it fair and balanced inside the system we've created. Uh, on the flip side, I'd say one of the easier challenges is coming up with cool game mechanics to make characters feel like that character. um, One of my favorite examples is Chrome Dome from Wave 5.
Hmm.
So Chrome Dome is a really interesting character in that he had the ability to selectively edit. In the idea of W Comics, he had the ability to selectively edit people, other bots' memories. And he kind of did it by just not hypnosis or any fantastical, but sort of like going in and digitally just like deleting the files. Um, and he did it in a kind of cool way. He had these like jacks that came out of his fingers, and he sort of just like interfaced with another character, uh,
Yeah.
right? And so the we were able to come up with removing action cards from the opponent's hand as a way to emulate selectively editing memories. It's sort of like, oh, you no longer remember that this daring escape card exists. It's gone.
Yeah.
Um, and that served both a very, very cool way of honoring the character's identity, and also serving in a really important game need that we had, which was a very, very targeted anti-action uh, card mechanic. So I would say that coming up with the cool ideas is interesting, making them balanced.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the one thing that is actually really interesting is that you guys are dealing with this on a way different plane. Whereas like most time when world building, you have to really essentially kind of come up with the world and then fill it. You guys have a lot of background with a lot of these characters to be able to really kind of start helping with that design process. So
Yep, it's almost 40 years worth of um, of content to pull from,
yeah.
and uh, in some ways, it's very daunting because we want to get it right. Like I don't know if I need to say this, but we sort of like deeply need to get it right as individuals and as creators.
Yes.
And so I am super fortunate that Matt Smith is on the team because he is a walking encyclopedia of Transformers knowledge, from broad strokes all the way down to super, super detailed knowledge. And then on top of that, he has this amazing ability to find the answer rapidly. Like, if you asked me, all right, what is why was Arcana a Decepticon? Like, show me the proof. I could get there, but Matt would be like, okay, I know which storyline this is from, and I know roughly which comic issue it's from, so I can just go find that. And oh, here's the 3 panels that explain that. And it's like, great.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he is truly an expert.
Yeah. Wow. So you guys, I would imagine you guys do some type of internal celebrating, and I know that we've seen a few pictures on the Facebook group of you guys celebrating internally with waves. Is there a specific memory or moment that you've had during one of these celebrations of a wave that kind of sticks around?
So there is, and it really is a reminder of something else. The incident is the cupcake, which you may have seen pictures of. We had
Yes.
a cake. For those of you who have not seen it, we had a cake to celebrate the release of a wave, and uh, uh, Sergeant Cup was sort of like, how they sort of like print edible icing in the shape of an image. And it
Mhm.
was a sheet cake, and so Cup was on there. And this was done by John Shork, and that this was a memorable incident because John Shork, who sadly we were very sad and very happy for him at the same time. He has moved on um, to another role, but John loved puns, and it was actually going through Titan Masters Attack, which used to be called Headmasters, was in some ways an excruciating experience having John sit at the desk right next to me, because I got to hear every pun that he vocalized. But the cupcake was a tangible John pun that we got to eat, which was great because when we ate it, the pun was gone. And John the smug look on John's face as he unveiled the cupcake was, I will never forget.
That's actually really funny. I could definitely.
Yep. Today I posted escape capsule, and I
You
was
did,
really
yes.
yeah I was really trying to channel John right there, right there. I was like, what would John say if John was right?
Yep, yep, no, really good card, but, like, even the art itself has a lot of fun stuff that involves in it, and everyone's been talking about the Jetson sounds and all that after just watching it launch away.
So that's Shanna Duncan, who is art director,
Yep.
and Shanna. I looked up. So we write an art description for every illustration that we commission. And the art
Mhm.
description says things like, some of it's just data, like which characters are here, what's the back setting, the background. And then there's specific instructions to the illustrator. And Shanna wrote something like, Stylor has to look really perturbed as he's flying away in the ejection capsule. And if you zoom in on that art, like it's a comic style illustration, right? So
Yep.
they're like the one line that describes Stylor's face, it just sort of like captures the emotion of him being perturbed. It's like, well, here we go again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know this is another thing that you guys did recently post on, and that's talking about the new secret rares and how the distribution works on those, and the fact that there are 6 of them in this wave. Is there anything that you can go in detail as to why the change in the distribution for those, and even possibly the number of secret rares that are going to be in this wave alone?
Sure, there's 6 super rares. There's 6 super rares um, in Titan Masters Attack. They're all regular character cards, so there's no bodies or heads. We wanted to make sure that when you were getting a super rare, you got the super rare, and didn't have to go collect other pieces to make it work, which is why it's extremely unlikely that we would ever do, and I see this question come up a lot, we would very unlikely ever do a super rare combiner where you had to collect a whole ton of super rare pieces um,
Okay.
from this point forward. So there's 6 of them, and they show up about one in every 30 packs, which is approximately one per box. This is not a guarantee, right? Like there's
Right.
randomness involved here. Um, but the reason we made this change is because we spend an inordinate amount of time watching people open packs and boxes. I love watching box opening videos because you get to hear and see the reaction of people. And I particularly love watching blind box opening videos. Every once in a while, you'll get a creator who's like, I have not looked at spoilers. and here I go. I'm diving into this box of trading cards.
Yep.
And the most exciting moments are opening a super rare character. And because for a variety of reasons, like one, they're just super rare, but two, because we get to do some weird things on super rares because they don't show up all the time. Like we could do things that we never want to see in limited on a basis. We can do things that are kind of bizarre and unique on a super rare, so that it's not something that um, you know, you open up and get a bunch of. But it's exciting, and we
Yeah.
wanted to make there more excitement. So we made more super rares, and we made them a little bit more frequent in packs. And we think that this will enhance the box opening experience for players because we notice a lot of our players buy at least one full sealed box at a time. Not everybody does, and some players buy more and some players buy less. But a box as a unit, and that's also the reason why we reward box purchases with the Titan pack. We want that to be a great experience.
Yeah, no, you guys have definitely done a really good job of making this. I don't know, like it comes differently from a different background. Like when I used to play Magic, right? And trying to collect four of a card was always a fun thing to get to that fourth one, but it definitely was a process getting to. Whereas you guys have done a really good job with making this game very accessible, and even purchasing a box is really enough to get you in the door with new characters and get you enough to really be able to play the game at definitely more of a, I would say, a casual level for sure. So it's really awesome.
I appreciate that because that's part of our specific intent.
Yep. And I mean, coming from, someone like me, I buy an insane amount of boxes when it comes to a new wave, but I also, have the shop where a lot of people get to go and get cards on there for considerably cheap and stuff. And I super appreciate the new distribution on these super rares because I know it's one thing that I've always kind of struggled with is being able to supply them to everybody because I wish I could, but this will make it a lot easier and honestly just get them into more people's hands, which is I think is really awesome.
Right. And you not every player wants or needs every super rare character, but with six
Right.
of them and a higher, about one per box, like you have trade fodder if you didn't get the one you want. It's like, oh, I got these two super rares. I'll trade you this one for that one to get the ones I want. And that's being able to acquire the specific characters you need, even with super rare ones, is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since like this game also has everyone's really attached to specific characters because this has been around, this IP has been around for so long. There's definitely people who are like, "Oh, I'm never going to play with this character card, but I need this character card." So,
Right. Tidal Wave is a great example of that. Um,
absolutely.
there are really hardcore Tidal Wave fans. And you can identify them because they scream tidal wave at the top of their lungs, just like tidal wave does. Um, so they walk around conventions yelling tidal wave, tidal. No.
Right.
But the tidal wave fans were really, really happy to see tidal wave, and part of it was because it was a little bit unexpected, right? Like it's originally an Armada character, so it's not technically Gen One. Generations, we got special dispensation from our Hasbro partners to include tidal wave because we really wanted a three-part combiner. We wanted boats, but being able to like watch the fans experience that they were going to get their favorite character, who they did not think they were going to happen, is super gratifying, and we love doing that. I would
Yeah.
love to get all of the characters in the game,
Yeah.
all several thousand of them across all of Transformers media.
Right. Well, that's the really fun part, and I'll admit I have a lot of Transformers knowledge, but I definitely don't know all of them. So even like with new characters, you guys have definitely really dove deep into the lore to really pull some of these characters out. And I think it's really awesome that you're allowing some of these other characters to get light versus, like we said in the beginning, always having kind of the same characters over and over.
Yep, like Windsweeper from Wave 5 is
Yep.
a very obscure character. It's not
Yeah.
like the most obscure character, but he's pretty darn obscure. Like the Decepticon Mayhem Squad. I think I said,
Yep.
you know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that group is pretty obscure anyway, but Windsweeper is a somewhat obscure member even of that. And um, it's also cool to let fans who do know what it is, what the character is, say, "Oh, I know who he is. Here's a little bit about that character. Here's a link to some images, and that they get to demonstrate their Transformers knowledge, which is also really cool."
Yeah, we have a local here, Wes. I'm sure you've chatted with him before. He's definitely in the group, but he is also like Matt, where he just has an insane amount of knowledge about any character from the Transformers lore. And usually, when I don't know someone, I just shoot him a message and I'll get like 2 pages back worth of every comic that he's been in and pretty much a wiki rundown of the character.
Yep, and it's fantastic.
Yep.
We were really we the nature of Titan Masters and previously Headmasters meant that we were going to have a lot of characters who had never appeared before in the TCG in Wave 5 because the toy gimmick, and for listeners, I never use gimmick is not a pejorative term for me. It's a technical term of art.
Yeah.
It's the cool mechanic that makes the toy line unique. The toy gimmick was, there are characters that you can't do without it. So we knew we were going to have a lot, but we also wanted to do a set that really just gave an extreme number of characters new to the TCG, including some favorites that fans have been asking for a long time, like Braun.
Yes.
Yep, as one example. And there are still several others that have not yet been revealed at the time that you and I are talking.
Yep.
That I think fans are like, oh, finally, when they see it. And that was an important creative goal for the set.
Yeah. No, and it's really awesome. It's definitely something that I would have never when I was introduced to this new TCG and I thought, seeing wave 1, I figured it was going to be a lot of that same style going through the next couple of waves, but you guys completely amped it up with just even going into the second one. It was like, ooh, bam, combiners. And then there was like wave 3, a little bit of this. And then now we're getting into the Headmaster series and all that. So it's definitely it's nowhere near where I thought it would be. And it's really good because you guys have done so much for design to make it feel far more like a Transformers game than more like a card game.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. So I know another thing that was getting a lot of chat recently, which when me and Matt talked about it, he had a really good description about how the new battle icons are just a little confusing for people because they haven't gotten their hands on them yet, which I think is a really accurate representation of it. But when it comes to these new battle icons on your end of the spectrum, what is a better way for you to be able to give a little bit of description as to some of the benefits to these new battle icons?
So when we're going back to the casting cost discussion, like
Yeah.
things can increment in one, like this can cost 5 or 6 in Magic, and they can increment in color, which is not quite one. It can be 5 mana, but one of them has to be white. And we were looking for a way to get that half step. I actually did not hear Matt's interview, so I don't know if I'm repeating stuff. Just tell me to shut up if I am.
You're totally good.
Okay, so we wanted the ability to have something that was like a half step of a pip. So, we can go 1 pip, 2 pip, 3 pip. But we wanted something that was a little bit more granular. And by having pips that only work for certain character traits, it allows us to allow for more fine tuning. And ultimately, that was the real goal. We wanted the ability to increase the number of colored pips that appear, but not make those cards as overpowered as they would be if they just added a regular pip. I think you'll notice. Can't remember what's been revealed at this exact moment of time, but there's at least a couple of double black pip cards in this set where one of the pips is, or more of the pips is, has a trait icon.
Gotcha,
For example, I know one of them is a double Titan Master pip.
yeah.
You've seen
Headbutt.
headbutt. So that ability to fine tune cards was the core goal of this. And then the secondary goal was for a way to either loudly or softly point cards at specific archetypes. So, for example, if there's a card that we know will work with tanks, let's take Hold Down. We know it'll work with tanks. We can loudly say, "Hey, use this with tanks." Like I could say, in the text box, gets a bonus with tanks. But that's not going to be appropriate for every single card. Hold Down is a tank themed card. Hold Down itself is a real world term. It's a strategy for protecting a tank. But with the trait pips, which Ken Nagel is calling hybrid pips, not sure if that's going to become the official term, but that's what we call them inside. We can sort of softly point something in a direction. We can say, "Oh, here's this card. but it's better if you're running tanks, um, or whatever that is. And that is an additional benefit. I think there's a lot we can do here. There's a potential for a lot of different types of these special hybrid pips. We went and bait and just mocked up all the combinations just to do it all at one time, but not every one of those possible combinations appears in wave 5.
Well, absolutely. Go ahead.
Right? No, that was it.
Oh yeah. So you touched on some of the stuff that Matt did, had a different perspective for it, which I think is really interesting. But the overall goal is that it essentially is going to allow you guys to do far more things and kind of mediate power levels back and forth, and like you said, target certain things here and do other things there. And obviously, as the game progresses, when more traits show up and all that other stuff, you guys are going to be able to expand even more on that as well.
Right, like we introduced the beast trait in this set. Like,
Yes.
right. There's a lot of people who are really happy about that.
My hands raised right here, right here.
Yeah, right. And as traits expand, this is also another axis where we can support a new trait right away. Like it's just yet another thing we can do that will help with that.
Yep, absolutely. So now that we've talked about a bunch of Transformer stuff as far as the game goes, I wanted to ask a few questions about you on a more personal level, just so we can get to know you a little bit more than just being the man, the myth, the legend behind the Transformers game. But if
I'm just,
you,
I'm just the myth, not the other thing.
all
Just
right, all
mythical.
right, I like that. I like that. But if you weren't working on the Transformers TCG, is there something that you would want to be working on?
So I'd love to, and I have in the past worked on Magic the Gathering.
Right.
I've been at Wizards for just under 10 years now.
Nice.
Um, and while I've worked on several projects here, but before I was working on Transformers, I was the lead game designer for a game called Magic Duels, which
Okay.
was a digital version of Magic the Gathering on iOS and Xbox and Steam. And I played Magic since the second or third release. Third release, sorry, because I never opened black bordered boxes.
Oh, all
Um,
right.
Never did, just too late. Um, but yeah, I love Magic the Gathering. I'd be happy, at some point in my future career, I'd love to work on it again. Um, I just love games, Jimmy. I
Yep.
just love I love tabletop games in particular. The face to face play experience is dear to my heart. Um,
Okay. So with that, are there what other games do you play? Do you have a favorite tabletop game that you play? Do you guys have like a Thursday night where you're always kind of throwing down tabletop games? Give me a little background here.
so I'm a huge board gamer. Um, I've been in the collectible game industry for a long time, so I've played most trading card games at some point, like even
Right.
if it's just to learn, right? But in what I play on a regular basis, I play Magic, mostly Commander.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Good. 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 Good.
I have a fun Commander deck that the rule for building my deck is um, the card had to originally be printed in Mythic, and I had to have traded for it.
Oh.
Uh,
Okay.
so it's a terrible deck, um, but it's a lot of fun. And no one at work. Oh, sorry, traded for it at work. At work, and so no
Okay.
one at work will trade me a Lotus Cobra, which I
Oh.
desperately need for mana fixing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, and I'm a really big board game player. Uh, Perhaps my favorite board game of all time is either Puerto Rico or Power Grid. Um, I've played both competitively.
Oh, nice.
Um, Currently, I am playing one group. I'm playing Betrayal Legacy.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. I know that one.
yep. So Betrayal at House of the Hill is sort of like a co-op game that then devolves into one of you as a trader. Um, and it's published by Avalon Hill, which is one of Wizards. And Betrayal Legacy is a legacy style game, which means for those of you out there who haven't heard of them, it means the game changes over time, like physically. So you may alter cards by writing on them like new abilities, or putting
Yeah.
stickers on, or unveiling new rules. And Betrayal Legacy is a very good game.
Yeah.
I'm
It
also
has so much play. It's so much fun.
It does, and it's just nuts. In a recent play session, and it's set like in early American history is when it starts, without revealing too much. But a 98-year-old grandma took out 16 cultists in one go, which just by rolling correctly every time, 16 times in a row. It was great. And I'm also playing Gloomhaven with my brother and some other friends.
Okay.
Gloomhaven is sort of like a fantasy tactical adventure game. It's also a legacy style game, so you keep playing, you keep upgrading the game and your character over time. That's my current tabletop games. I could go on forever. Tell me when to stop. Digitally, I've been playing. Played Counter Strike since like 1.3, so many years.
Oh, big CS fan. I will admit I would have never put you on playing CS. Absolutely
Ah,
not.
I'm an enormous first person shooter fan. Although I'm getting significantly older than I was, and it's like playing the same game over time. It's like I Magic. Oh, I can see
Yep.
how my Magic skills have changed over time. Playing CS:GO over almost 15 years, I can see how my reflexes have degraded over time.
Yeah. Well,
And
we'll just blame that on the patches, right? We're not gonna blame that on the age.
That's the age, man. And I really like battle royale style games, and I try out a bunch of different ones. And I come back to PUBG pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I don't play a lot at this point, but I like trying new battle royale games. Sort of like looking professionally at like, oh, how are they distinguishing this battle royale game from another? And I really like the Counter Strike battle royale Danger Zone.
Yeah, that one is actually really fun. I've been seeing quite a bit of stuff of that, and then I've dabbled around with Apex Legends as far as trying to do a medium between the other battle royales, just because it's got some of that new flair to it, and then it's got a lot of the at least customizing with guns and some upgrades and stuff. So
Yep. My only problem with Apex Legends is such a fast game
yes, yes,
that I have. I'm too old to compete. Like physically, I am too old to compete with teenagers. Their reaction times are just infinitely better than mine, and I don't have enough time to play like 6 hours a day to hone the skills that I have. So
yep, yep. I completely understand. It's one of the reasons why I do play it is I get very play, so I get to sit down, kind of just run through 7 or 8 games, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good.
yep.
Yep.
I'm much more likely to be the one sitting in a bush in PUBG with an M24 patiently for
Just waiting
7
it
minutes at a time. Just like, oh,
out.
read my book here. Don't mind me. Oh, bang.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the reasons why I can't do the Fortnite gig. It's just like you said, kind of the way that the reaction times for some people it's absolutely insane. So I like to stick to my more methodical card games for sure. I get to spend a little more time on my turn to make sure it goes to go.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
you can
So
and with tabletop games, you can spend a lot of non-game time thinking about it too. It's like, oh, I can replay this turn in my head. Oh, man,
yeah,
if I
yeah.
bought that factory instead.
Plus, like you said, the face to face interaction is a huge one. I definitely, it's fun to play online with people, but definitely when you can play as a group, together, it changes the game up a lot for me.
Yep.
All right, so if you could be a superhero, getting off of the game subject, who would you be?
Ah, interesting. So in my past, funny that you bring this up. In my past, one of the things I did was I was product development manager for HeroClix, which
Oh,
is a
okay.
tabletop miniatures game published by our friends at WizKids, and it encompasses many different IPs, but the ones that sort of made it strong were Marvel superheroes and DC
Yep.
superheroes. So, which superhero character would I be? Uh, mm, uh, this is probably going to be a little bit of a weird choice, but I
Okay.
love the idea of point to point teleportation. I think it is the coolest, most interesting superhero skill. And there aren't a lot of like various people can do point to point teleportation, but in order to make it interesting, lots of people in comics have some weird thing that they have to do. Like Mirror Master can kind of point to point teleport provided there's a mirror there. One comes
Yeah.
out the other. But I don't want to be limited by that. I want just legit point to point teleportation. So I would say Doctor Strange has the
Okay.
most versatile point to point teleportation because of the way his portals can work.
Yeah.
And it's not just point to point teleportation from places in this world, but depending on where he is in his skill set, he can also cross dimensional boundaries with his skills. So Doctor Strange.
That's a really good call there. Actually, I agree with you on the teleportation. That would be if I could pick one superpower, that would 100% be mine. But if it was on the superhero side of things, it was funny. Me and Matt were 100%. We were both on Batman pretty hardcore. He is also a huge Batman fan, so it was a pretty good little chat there for a while.
I'm an enormous Batman fan also,
No,
but
nice.
I would not want to be Batman.
Yeah, it's a tough
Like
job. I have to agree.
how many billions are worth having a soul that tortured all the time? Like I don't think
Yeah.
Batman knows how to have fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, you see him smile what 5 times throughout the career of his character, so I get it. That's so funny. All right, well, this is where I'm going to open the door for you. I know you're on a tight schedule, so I don't want to keep you up. So I'm going to open the door for you to be able to chat about whatever you would like to talk about. So is there anything you'd like to throw at me or a specific subject that you'd even like to highlight on?
Sure. So, what character that we have not yet done do you want to see?
I'd have to be in the Overlord boat. I'd have to jump in that one.
Okay. Well, we did Sky Shadow, so
Yep. I definitely saw that, which made me very excited for what could potentially be down the road, especially with the power level that I see with Sky Shadow. So I definitely am really excited. Big fan of that character. And then obviously I'd have to probably jump into a really cool series. I don't know how you guys would eventually work it in, but obviously to go with like a Unicron versus Primus, that would be a really cool thing as well to kind of see those massive characters be able to translate onto a tabletop. So especially with all the really cool things you guys come up with, like even the combiners with all the little guys making, the big card on the table. I would be very interested to see how that goes down.
I dig it. I dig it. So,
Yep.
we've certainly talked about how we would implement that. Sky Shadow is really interesting in that we are, in some ways, rethinking the power level of the smaller size combiners, and by size I mean just like the number of parts.
Yep.
Um, we didn't hit the mark with Omega Supreme. He's too not powerful enough for the investment in resources that you have to do in order to play him. And so with Sky Shadow, we're rethinking it a little bit. With Tidal Wave, we're rethinking it a little bit, and we'll see what these experiments, how they play out, what the reaction is, what the metagame reaction is,
Yep.
because there are more. There are more duocons that work in our world, work as 2-part combiners. There are other characters who are literally 2-part combiners. Uh,
Yep.
so
I
that's where our head is.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested as well, and it's something that I greatly appreciate you guys being very honest when it comes to talking about a lot of characters and where stuff sits, currently. And like I said, specifically talking about Omega Supreme just not quite being there is I completely agree with you. I think he's an awesome character to play with, especially if you're a fan. Definitely more on that casual versus competitive, but even Tidal Wave, like when I saw that this was going to be a promo character essentially, and then you could just get tapped down anybody, it made that go, oh, okay, like they are going to be way better. So I definitely,
Yep.
I appreciate the trying a little bit until you guys get to really fine tune where a lot of these stuff can sit. Cause I know that I'm specifically very excited for those characters from Wave 5. So
Tidal Wave is extraordinarily fun to play. He, the play pattern is really interesting. It's this fun mini game of making sure that the deployed, let's just call them patrol members because it's
yep,
generally what they are right now. But
yep,
like those characters get KO'd first, so that Tidal Wave combines with full health.
yes,
That's a fun game in and of itself. Deploying characters is fun. The tapping down an enemy character so you can just go smash immediately is extremely powerful.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, it even has the really good resource of just even taking away essentially opponent, which is still very relevant in itself.
Right. Even if it doesn't, even if for some reason you don't kill an opponent, it does throw off the math and allows you to untap, you know, basically one attack faster, which is very helpful.
Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
so I really like the character. And one of the things that we're trying with Tidal Wave is including a mechanic that lets the character remain more relevant as new cards come out by letting you choose what gets to start underneath the transport and the aircraft carrier. So we'll see how this goes. I have high hopes for both of them.
Yeah, I agree. And then the really cool part, which is just something that these card games, especially once you start to get to multiple expansions or waves, is it allows you to go back and revisit these characters down the road. So, like you said, not locking in anybody that can go underneath those characters. You can revisit this in, let's say, 2 to 5 years and go, oh, well, now I can try this character underneath there. And you get to kind of replay it, but get a different feel and different outcomes as well.
Yep. And stratagems, the new card type in Wave 5, also helps with that. It's a way
Yes.
for us to shine some light on characters that we didn't quite get right the first time, or we were like, oh, we really wish that we could have also included this thing. For example, today, um, Energon Open winner Kevin Allen revealed Trax,
Yes.
and
Yes.
yep, and Trax's stratagem, and there was a lot of internal debate: do we Trax a car plane? And it for reasons I won't get into, it turned out to be probably not correct and a little bit maybe too powerful in terms of future proofing lands. But paying an extra star for that was a little bit more balanced. So the stratagem lets you have tracks also be a plane if you want to do it that way. And so it's not just going back and spotlighting old characters. It's also for us for a way to dial in the power level of characters uh, correctly that we print new by making the option available to do something that's with the star cost.
Yeah, the stratagems are honestly probably one of my like favorite designed pieces from almost any card I've ever played. And it's because like especially with this being a physical card game, you guys can't go in and just like, edit a card and add one attack to it and kind of do, patches. This allows you to kind of go back and fix those characters and then make them really good without having to redistribute characters or so. I absolutely love the design of it. I legitimately think it's genius.
I appreciate that, and I'll pass it along to the team. And we have had a discussion. It's funny that you brought up digital. We've had a discussion. Would this design have been inspired had not digital trading card games existed?
Oh,
Uh,
I don't think so.
right? It's a very it's a way for us to sort of try and emulate what a digital card game can do by the nature of its medium that physical card games can't. And I think we found ways that are very interesting for it to be beyond just that editing capability.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited by stratagems.
Yeah, like I said, and it's something that it's future proof. So even if, like you said, something didn't work out this way, the case is, you guys can always just revisit it later on. And like it's just talking about Cosmos and Volcanicus, which I am going to be sleeving up Volcanicus immediately, is it just allows me to play those characters and try them again and just continue forward with it. I love it. Love it.
Let's see what else. So um, it is today when we're recording this. It is February 27th. Stores have until March 3rd to sign up for an in-store play kit. We extended it by 1 week because we were able to add Dan Arnold's Energon Invitational winner card as the buy a box promo for Wave 5. And
Yep.
so since that was not part of the original announcement, we've extended the sign up period. It
That's
was
really
really
awesome.
it was really tight timing. We weren't sure that we were going to get the production schedule to work. We did. Thank you very much, producer team. Will Ansell gets a super high five here. He's our producer for Trading Card Game.
Yep.
Um, and so we wanted to put it in there because it worked perfectly, right? Like Wrecker ties in with the Wrecker theme, Titan Master ties in with the Titan Master theme, and then Dan's design inspiration of a fact or fiction style mechanic, which means flipping cards and the opponent divides them into piles that you have to choose which to take, was really genius. So um, for all you listeners out there, if your store has not yet signed up for an in-store play kit, all they have to go and do is go into the Wizards event reporter system. That is what they use every day for Magic tournaments, and there's an option to sign up for the kit for free. So if your store hasn't, bug them so you can get the cool cards in the in-store play kit.
Yep, absolutely. I know a lot of our stores are doing it. We have a pretty crazy release weekend happening. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I definitely suggest, again, if you guys are out there and you haven't signed up for them yet, you definitely go out there and get signed up for it because there is some awesome stuff that comes with that.
Yeah, and April 17th is the big day.
Yes, I'm super excited. Yeah, I legitimately have a huge vacation dedicated just to this, so I'm really excited.
That is super cool. All right, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you coming on and sitting down. And if there's anything, just like I told Matt, if there's anything you or help with, you guys know how to reach out and get a hold of me. I will always be here. So
Awesome. Until next
awesome.
time.